Okay, so it's now live, and I want to make sure that on my channel, let's see what it looks like. So I can monitor how many people are on, so I know when to start talking. Well, that's not it. Okay. Oh, so I did something. Okay, I need to find out. Okay, I'm looking at the live control room right now. If you're on watch page, you can see that. Okay, I muted it. Good morning, viewer. Good morning. Good morning. This is Spirit Journey. I'm just setting up the screen right now, making sure everything is working. Yes, good morning. Good morning. I'm just about to press on the screen to view myself. I want to make sure that everything is set up. I hope you all could hear my voice. And I invite those who are watching now to say a quick hello in the chat box. Don't be shy. Yes, let me know if you can hear me well. Okay, so we have some people aboard, so I'm going to put my face on. Yes, good morning. Good morning. This is Spirit Journey, and welcome to this live Google Hangouts live stream. Good morning. And yes, I have my little Lily here, my little doggy woggy. She wants to be a part of this show right now. She's a mama's girl. She likes to uh, be with me, and I really love my little dog. Okay. So, welcome to this live stream. And as you see on the title of this live stream, I entitled this, I'm going to talk about the Central Park Five on Netflix. 2 days ago, I had visited a family member who has a television set and set up for Netflix. And I was just browsing through it. I never saw Netflix before. And it caught my attention when it mentioned about the Central Park Five. Now, what is Central Park Five? Okay, this is what this video is going to be about. Well, Central Park Five has to do with this serial. It was a serial rapist in 1989. In April, there were a series of rapes that were going on in town. But also around this time, and again, back in the 1980s, you had back then a lot of teenagers. And what would happen at times would be a lot of unsupervised young teenage boys. And some would enter Central Park, it's a big park in Manhattan, and they would just run and just be mischievous, be undisciplined teenagers. And this particular night in April in 1989, some of these boys were harassing some of the joggers and bicyclists that would go out to Central Park. And this one particular night, a rape occurred. And it was a rape and an attempt of murder. The person, it was a woman who was raped, and she survived the rape. She was left for dead by the rapist. And someone who was passing by in Central Park finds the body. And the cops were summoned, and word got out about this rape. And then shortly after, the the media got a hold on the story. And again, because at this particular night were these teenage boys, many of them were Black and Hispanics that would be running around in the park. There were teens. And so they assumed that the pack of young teenage boys were responsible for this particular rape. So again, it was an assumption about who the rapist could be. But also during this time, this particular year, it was a serial rapist that was out and about in New York City, who was known as the East Side Rapist, if I remember right. And interesting, during this time, I was actually still in the military. I was serving in the United States Navy at this time. And in April, I was just coming back from vacation. And then in August that same year, I I left the military and became a civilian. And so that was in August of '89 when I came back to civilian life and back in New York City. And the racial climate was awful. And even though back at that time, I didn't see a lot, I didn't watch a lot of television about it, but you heard about it. It was in the air. The racial climate was really intense. Okay. And so now, here was 30 years later, Netflix did a movie, a mini series about this famous case. And also, what I forgot to mention, that they did eventually get the actual rapist of this Central Park jogger. She was a jogger. Also, she was a white woman. She is a white woman who was raped. And it was just a fluke how they discovered about who the real rapist was. See, these five boys, uh, most of them were, well, all of them are people of Black ancestry. Four non-Hispanic Blacks, and another one was a Hispanic, a light-skinned guy from, I'm not sure exactly where it's from, but either way, they were falsely accused of raping this woman who was a white woman. So here, the five teenage boys from the age of 14 to 16 were falsely accused. And so this movie, Netflix, it's a three-part series on the movie. And so I just want to go over what I found. I have I'll be showing you different things on the. We'll be sharing the my screen. So let me see if I could find it now. Let's see here. Okay. Just share the screen. It just take me a moment. Okay. Let's see. Share. Present to everyone. Okay. I haven't done this for a long time. Also, in navigating with Google online, Google Hangouts online. Okay. What you see on the screen here, this is Netflix, and they have a trailer of it, but for copyright purposes, I'm not going to play it. But this is the movie, and it's entitled When They See Us. And the actors that they had in this movie was excellent. The men were really, really compelling. Again, it's a three-part series on Netflix. Okay. And it showed about what happened just before the rape, what the boys were doing. And again, none of these boys even knew each other. None of them knew each other. They were all just so happened to be in Central Park. And after the woman was found out that she was, when it was found out that this white woman was raped and left for dead, that the media took a frenzy on the case. And so I guess because of the public pressure of finding the culprit, that the police just wanted to just arrest people. Now, the police, according to the movie, that they received telephone calls from people who were in Central Park who were complaining that they were young boys who were harassing them as they rode their bikes or as they jogged. And so the police thought that those boys must have been responsible for the rape. Okay, in this case, 1 and 1 does not equal 2. Just because someone is in the park and just because some teenage boys are playing the fool doesn't mean that they committed the rape. It could have been someone that the woman knew. It could have been anyone. But it turns out, one person who actually raped her. And again, with this case, what's so sad about this case was that the stories of well, again, these were young teenage boys, and the cops had, like this one, the one that you see the picture here, he was beaten up by the cops. He was at the park, and when the cops were coming to the park to just arrest anyone who's at the scene to question them, he was beaten up by the cops. So he had a bruised face, a scratch on his face. It's because the cop had took his helmet and bashed it in his face. And again, he's only 14, this boy that you see here. And so he and four others, a total of five, were taken into police custody. And then each of the boys were interviewed separately. They were deprived of sleep, food. The parents were not allowed in the room. They were beaten by the cops. They were told to sign a confession that they themselves didn't even write. And then they also had a videotaping their so-called confession, and how, according to the movie in Netflix, what was happening, that they would ask the detective would say, okay, so tell us what happened. And so they'd try to say something like they were promised that if they cooperate and just tell them what they want to hear, that they'd be able to go home. And so these are teens, and again, their parents aren't there. They want to get home. They're scared. They were beaten by the cops and coerced in different ways and deprived of food and sleep. So they're probably very mentally confused, and they just want to get out of there. So they would make up a scenario, and they were being fed information. Like the cops say, well, such and such happened, right? You did that, right? Right. And so they did, yeah. And then they were instructed to elaborate on it. And then their stories did not match up. So that they would stop the video and then coerce them again, and then turn the video back on. And then until they got it so-called right, what was good enough for the cops. So the confessions were really like acting, and they made it up as they went along. If it sounded good, the detectives kept the video and removed everything else that they didn't want to be included. So it was really a cut and paste confession on tape. And it was an integrated jury. They had blacks and other people of color on the jury. So it was not an all-white jury. And even though the evidence was conflicting, there was no DNA attached from any of those five young teens to the scene of the crime. Okay, so and again, the racial climate at that time was intense. And again, people only know what the media says. People weren't as savvy about news. We didn't have YouTube or Twitter or any of these social media that we take for granted today. Only thing that we had back then in the 1980s was the television news and the newspaper. But it's very one-sided many times, and it's controlled the media. But nowadays, people have different outlets. And so information could be shared easier than back then. And things could be I guess, verified a little better. Okay, but the but see, the information was not. It was problematic, and again, people, the stress of the racial climate of the day. If you were a young black person, you were considered an enemy. And that's also why I'm doing this video, because it's almost like a nostalgia of what I went through in the early 80s, and how just going about how you were treated. So whether you were male or female, you were a bad person. And it was not a good time for me at all, especially if you were a black male. Okay, so let me see here in this screen. Okay, now I have on this screen here, this is the name of the victim who was raped by this one person. Okay, and I'm going to give the name. Yes, let me go back a little bit. Let me go back. Okay, almost forgot here. This is, let me put on top here. Okay, this man that you see here, his name is Matthias Reyes. Okay, he's the actual rapist of the what they call the Central Park jogger. Okay, Matthias Reyes. He is a serial rapist, and this report that you see here, okay, it says that classification, homicide, he's a serial rapist, as you see there. And the murder that he did, according to this notice, is 1988. Okay. And then there was something here in April, April 19, 1989. That was the Central Park rapist. And then as you see here, that in August 5th of 1989, he was finally arrested, but he's arrested for something else. He's not arrested for the Central Park, the woman that was raped in Central Park, that the 5 boys were falsely accused of raping. Okay, this is the actual person. And I was trying to find online. I learned of him a couple of years back. He confessed to the rape in 2002. I believe it was 2002. He confessed to it. He was already in prison at the time when he confessed. Again, he's a serial rapist. And this guy, and one of the 5 teenage boys who were arrested, I forget the name of that other person, they were in the same prison. And they even had a fist fight. And the what do you call, the Central Park 5, the Central Park 5 fellow didn't know who he was. He was just another inmate. But I'm wondering now whether this man here, whether he knew about the guy. Most likely he knew who the fellow was. And Matthias Reyes. The likelihood he knew who the other fellow was. And they fought, according to the movie in Netflix, that the one of the 5 who were falsely accused of Matthias Reyes' rape. He was cleaning a room. It was like a TV room, and it was on too loud for Reyes, and the other fellow had turned it down because it was too loud for. I'm sorry, it was too loud for one of the 5 that was falsely accused of the rape, and Reyes had turned the television back up, and then the guys started fighting. But later on in the movie, you discover that this man Reyes is the actual rapist of the woman. And Matthias Reyes had come to some type of spiritual awakening and decides to fess up to this rape. And I guess, according to the movie Netflix, that he liked that the guy, that he was truthful, and how he um, tolerated the, I shouldn't say tolerate, but how he withstood the assaults that he received in prison, because people thought he was a rapist of a white woman, and so he was beaten up by some of the white prisoners. And so he sees the guy's character, how he withstood all these horrible, horrible things. And so he decides to fess up, and he talked to the authorities in the prison. And again, he's already in prison for murder. He murdered someone. He murdered a woman and raped them. And what I found interesting with this person, so here he's a serial rapist. And so as a serial rapist, what they call his MO, it was always the same. And so it's interesting that they didn't tie together, so to speak, link together, that the Central Park jogger that was brutally raped and left for dead, but she did survive it, that they didn't tie it in for the same fellow, which is really odd. And in all these rapes, I would imagine that his DNA was left at the scene. So if his DNA was left at the scene at these other rapes and murder, how come they didn't tie him to all those other rapists? They had his DNA on file, right? So this is just something that's just clicking in my head now. Okay, you have a serial rapist, Matthias Reyes. He was raping women on the Upper East Side. And another thing I read was he raped a woman inside a church. And he raped, as you see in this info here, victim's profile, 24-year-old pregnant woman. So he rapes a pregnant woman. And I think he killed that woman. But what's really interesting, and I know that I'm not meaning to be, I don't know the right word, but inflammatory about it, but I can't help but notice. So how come there was no outcry for the other women who, again, one died, and then there were the other women that were brutally raped? Those other women didn't get the same attention. And that's where a controversy comes in. What is the controversy? That the Central Park jogger got a lot of attention. Again, what happened to her was horrible, horrible, horrible. But the difference that I can gather from what happened, her name is Trisha Miley. Okay, let me show you her picture here. Okay, this is Trisha Miley. She is one of the victims of the Central Park, Central Park 5. Okay, this is her. And this woman worked at the company that I would later work for. She worked for Solomon Brothers. Solomon Brothers was a Fortune 500 company. It's now it had been bought out by another company, Smith Barney. The last thing I heard, but yeah, I also worked for Solomon Brothers, but not during the time when she worked there. Now, if my memory serves me right, she was to report to work, and when she didn't report that morning, they immediately thought something was wrong. And so right away, there's a lot of attention being put on her. Where is she? And again, she's left for dead. I don't know whether they had ID on her, or what, because she was stripped, she was stripped naked and then tied up in her clothes. Um, badly brutalized, and her eye exploded. They said it popped out of her head. This poor woman. My heart goes out for her. It's very, very horrible what happened to her. And so, but I have to ask that question. Okay. Now this picture here of Trisha Miley, that's her name. This was done in 2003. Okay, WNYC radio station. Okay. And I remember she was also interviewed by Oprah Winfrey. That interview didn't go that well. She Miley was Trisha Miley got offended by Oprah and made her feel like that it's her fault that she got raped. It didn't rub well with her. She felt defensive, and she shouldn't have to feel defensive. I mean, people have the freedom to jog. And again, it was to be a short jog, and then she'll just come home. Um, See, don't blame the victim of a rape. It's like saying a woman is raped because what she was wearing. No, people are raped because the other person is a sicko and has a problem in the head. Stop blaming the victim. Okay? I just want to say that up front. Stop blaming the victim. Start blaming the rapist, the culprit. That's who you blame, not the victim. Okay? So again, she survived the brutal attack against her. But I asked myself, now, every woman, regardless of your race, religion, national origins, coloring, body shape, all of us are special, are good, and are worthy of protection. But what was different about this was that because she was a white female, and because she is in a high profile job, there's more media attention that was given to her. But the other women, at least I know with one of the women that Matthias Reyes raped, was a Hispanic woman. So here you have a serial rapist, but you don't hear any outcry. I mean, it's unfortunate that rape occurs all the time in New York City and in many large cities. Unfortunate. And again, no one should be victimized by such brutalities, but it does happen. And but I have to keep asking, why were the other women victims of this serial rapist, Matthias Reyes? why weren't those other women, put in the public's eye and an outcry? Well, part of it, again, this is the 1980s. A big part of it was because of race. Race in the 1980s was a big thing. That's what I want to stress. It was a big, big thing, race, especially if you were a Black person, a Black male, that you were considered a predator. And so you have a white woman who's raped. And so they want to, again, the stereotype that Black people are sexual predators. And so just tie it in and just grab any guy and accuse him and force them to confess. I mean, not only teenage boys are beaten up by cops, you have adults too who are victimized by cops who are unsavory. And again, not all cops are evil. You have some very, very decent cops. So I want to say that not all cops are bad, but those particular cops and detectives who were working on this case to find out who the rapist was for um, Trisha Miley, okay? And so they wanted the public to be at rest and just to find anyone and accuse them of the rape, so then the public will start to feel safer again, and they won't be the public won't harass the cops to find the culprit. So they wanted it quick. But still my mind is thinking, okay, so they arrested these the five boys. Okay. They arrested him and four other boys. But weren't people still being raped at this time? Because again, what's his name here? Now, let me get the name. Okay, now wasn't this person still out and about? As you see here, he was arrested in August of that year. The rape of the Central Park jogger happened in April of 1989, but Matthias Reyes' arrest was a few months down the road. Okay, so were there any rapes in between? And again, the MO of this serial rapist, his DNA should have linked up with the other rapes, and in particular, the rape of the Central Park jogger, right? Again, none of these boys here, none of these boys, the Central Park Five, none of their DNA was on this woman. And again, these boys never met each other. They did not know one another. And then when they were arrested at different parts of the park, and they could not have been in those different locations and still raped the lady. And even though all that was discussed on the trial, still the jury, and it was a mixed race jury. You had a lot of blacks on the jury, according to what Netflix showed in their dramatization of it, of the trial. But they, for whatever reason, they accused the boys as being the actual rapists, even though DNA did not link them to the crime. Okay, you're going to have five guys and none of their DNA. And again, at the scene of the crime, there's a lot of blood all over the place, and nothing. These boys didn't have it. So it seems to me to suggest to me that the jury was also being manipulated by the media, that you have to get the bad guys. And there was a terminology that the police and the detectives said. They called what happened, like when the group of the teenage boys were running around and harassing bicyclists and joggers, they called that wilding. Wilding. And so they put that term out in the media, so it hit a lot of the newspapers. And so it was just a frenzy. And perhaps these jurists also got that news, and they couldn't rationally give a good outcome. They couldn't, they didn't think correctly. And again, these guys were only from 14 years of age to 16, and they did time. They all didn't do the same amount of time. Some did 6.5 years, and some did, I think, 11 years or 13 years. But still, it's awful. Okay. Let me show you something else here. Let's see. Okay. Okay, this video, okay, this is about Donald Trump. Okay. And this the other thing I want to talk about with this case is, why is this case being discussed now? Well, as you see here, let me pull it down. See this? This is published in October 7th, 2016. Well, what was going on at that time? The election. It's an election year, and Donald Trump was running for presidency, and he did win the presidency. But it was brought up, okay? What was also going on at that time was that Donald Trump was not in politics. He is a realtor. He has a lot of real estate properties, and he's been in the public eye, the New York scene, since the 1980s. Okay, and he's a very wealthy guy, and he's very verbal, as we all know, and he puts out an ad. Let me see if I can find it here. Okay, let me just blow this up more. Okay, I can't even really read it, but as you see here, okay, there was President Trump in 1989 puts a full page ad in the newspaper, and it said, "Bring back the death penalty." Okay, now again, he paid for this ad himself. It cost a pretty penny, if I heard, that I heard. And there is a video with him speaking on the case. Now, at least in the video that I saw I think it was in the Netflix movie, and I could not find that video online, but it had him yelling, angry. He was speak on behalf of the white female jogger, and that again, the consensus back then was the rapist should be, bring back the death penalty. He did not say that the 5 boys were the ones that did it. He didn't say them by name or say that those 5 should be killed. Again, the trial didn't start yet. It takes time for a trial to go on. And but the general consensus at that time, again, this is 1989, and the racial climate was extremely intense, and it was a lot of crime back then. There was a lot of it was not a safe place. It was very dirty, New York City. The it was a lot of dirt on the floor. It was just a very filthy place. And he, Donald Trump and many other people of that time were fed up about the crime that was happening in New York City. And so, in my opinion, I know this isn't a popular statement, but that Trump's statement was not a racist statement. It was a statement of someone knowing that there was a person who was raped and left for dead. And they say, hey, bring back the death penalty. So, but what is really interesting about it is that, see, again, that guy Matthias, let me shrink that back. Okay, now Matthias, this fellow here again, now he's a serial rapist. But Donald Trump, President Trump, President Trump back then didn't do an outcry regarding the other women who were raped. But again, those other people who were raped wasn't really put out in the media. But what was put on the media was this woman. She worked at a very high profile job, Solomon Brothers, a top, one of the top companies. It was investment banking. So she was in investment banking. I'm not sure exactly what she did there, but she made money. She's middle class or upper middle class. She's white, and she lived in the city. And people were worried where she was when she did not report to work. She was a very reliable worker, and she didn't report that morning. And so, if my memory serves me right, they knew that there was a problem, so they're looking for her friends or co-workers, okay? But if you are a poor woman or modest income and you're a person of color, you're overlooked. And I think that's what really happened in this case. Again, now I'm not downplaying her, uh, Ms. Trisha Miley. In no way trivializing, okay? She was brutally victimized and left for dead, okay? And I'm not minimizing that she's not important. She is important. And so are the other women who were raped. And there was a woman that was also murdered by her rapist, raped and killed. Okay, I don't know whether she was the pregnant woman who was raped and killed, but either way, it was horrible. But there wasn't the same type of outcry. Why didn't the media enforce a search for the serial rapist? And again, I would imagine if you're a serial rapist and the DNA, that they would have that DNA tracked down. I don't know, maybe they didn't have the same type of technology of, DNA, but at least at the time of the trial, they didn't find any of the 5 teenage boys' DNA linking them to the scene of Trisha Miley's crime scene. Okay, so I feel that there was a racial component to it, and unfortunate in history, if you are a poor woman or if you are a woman of color. And I know that one of the victims of Matthias Reyes was a Hispanic woman. And the media back then, they didn't like Hispanics either. They hated blacks more, but they also hated Hispanics too, from especially from the Caribbean. So it's really interesting how justice can be served when it's expedient if the person is very well known or a very high profile or rich person, and it's almost reminding me of like what's his name, Juicy Smollett, the actor that was on that movie. Oh, what's that name? Oh, I forget the name of the movie that the TV series that he was in. But here, similar thing. So here, Juicy Smollett alleged that he was attacked by two Caucasian men who used racial epithets and slurs about homosexuals and commenced to beat him up, put a noose around his neck, and use a bottle, an empty bottle of hot sauce, and put bleach in it and sprinkle it on him. And then it later turned. Now, when he reported that, it was again an outcry, just like it was an outcry for Trisha Miley when Juicy Smollett was came to the police that his peers, the people who are in the television industry, movie industry, they came to his aid, and verbally, gave an outcry about the injustice of being targeted because of your race and your sexual orientation. And so what happened? The police um, did a uh, did an investigation. They wanted to find out who would do this. And again, Juicy Smollett uh, is is an actor, and they don't want any. Movies are made in Chicago. They don't want that. People to stop making new movies in Chicago because it brings them money. And they don't want to, Chicago already has a bad reputation. And so this added to it. And again, a high profile person. And so they wanted to find out quickly who did this. So the police detectives did a marvelous work and discovered who the culprits were. And to everybody's shock, especially the detectives and cops, that Juicy Smollett allegedly lied. He was found, at least it is believed, that he told a lie and that he orchestrated the alleged beating and that he allegedly mailed himself a letter, a hate letter with this white powder inside of it. Okay. So again, I use the term alleged because again, he did not go to trial and you are so-called presumed innocent until proven guilty. But the general consensus is that they believe that he orchestrated the whole thing. So again, I'm just tying in that here you have a high profile person and an actor and a person who is also black and also homosexual. And so you want to calm down the environment because again, it was an outcry. Initially, was a very strong outcry. How dare someone violate this person for being black and being gay. And just like in 1989 with Trisha Miley, how dare someone rape this woman, a high profile woman. Well, she worked for a high profile company, Solomon Brothers. And so, and again, she had friends. And when she didn't report to work, that helped the momentum to get the media out there to get that attention. But again, let's say you're a small person, you're not at a high profile job, or you're a racial minority, or you're poor, you may be overlooked because again, this person here is a serial rapist, but there was no outcry, and he kept on raping people and murdered. Okay, so it's interesting when in 2002 he admits to murder. I'm sorry, admits to violating, raping the Central Park rapist. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little confused. Yes, he confessed to raping Trisha. Okay, so what about the death penalty? Are they going to bring it back and arrest? I don't know. So I think he's still alive. That we don't have the death penalty now. But it's interesting when they thought black men were behind the rape of this white woman. That the excitement, it just fed like a like a virus. It was horrible. Let me see here what other things I have here. Okay, I showed you that. So I just really wanted to share this information. Let me go back on the screen here. Okay, so it's just a lot of information here. Again, the atmosphere is very, very problematic back then. I wouldn't want to relive the 1980s. It wasn't good for me at all. It was a very intense time. And again, during the rapes, I was still in the military, but I got out that same year in August. And you hear this stuff. It was horrible. Yeah. I know I want to talk about something else. Let me see if I made sure I have everything here. Okay. So the other thing I want to talk about is what if, okay, I want to try to tie this in. Um, it's a little, I feel a little awkward about talking about this, but as I mentioned in the title of this live stream, I also uh, mentioned about child molestation. Okay. Now, in the case of, again, the Central Park Five, okay, it's about rape. And what happens to the victim? Again, those five teenage boys were innocent of the crime that they were accused of. And again, Netflix did show beautifully how it affected their lives. Oh, I almost forgot something. I can't believe this. I almost forgot. But I want, yeah, okay, so I'm going to talk about the child molestation a little later on. But before I forget, I want to mention about this Netflix. The movie overall the acting was very good. I feel, it was in three parts. And the third one, the last one, had me crying. It was very emotional. I give it an A for the dramatization on uh, the event that happened. Um, I think though I start to question though about why this movie is coming out now. And as you see in some of the tabs, excuse me, some of the tabs that I showed you with regard to Trump, that it was uploaded in 2016. That was the election year. Now, it is true that Trump did put out the ad in the newspaper for bringing back the death penalty. And so, why they mention it now? This is something, again, is 30 years ago. And again, if any one of you guys or gals knew someone, had a loved one who was raped and left for dead, your natural emotions would probably be, hey, I bring, get the culprit and give him the death penalty. So I would not say that what was said of Trump at that time was something because of racism. It was that a brutal crime happened. What I believe, and again, I'm not diminishing those victims, those four teenage boys, or minimizing the seriousness of the woman who was raped in Central Park, or the other victims of Matthias Reyes. Okay, my intent is not to minimize them. What happened to them was horrible in every aspect. But I felt that the movie was done for political reasons. Now, in the movie, the TV miniseries, I should say, that Netflix put out, that the movie, I don't, I'm not sure if she was the executive producer, but she was one of Oprah Winfrey also contributed to the movie, the TV miniseries of it entitled When They See Us. Okay. And it when the credits were going up and you see Oprah Winfrey, I I really started thinking. I said, wow, isn't that something? Here she does a movie on a very polarizing event in his New York City history of four blacks, one Hispanic being charged of raping a white woman, middle class woman. And it was mentioned that she may run for 2020 presidency. Okay. And also in the movie, television miniseries on Netflix, they showed Trump, an old footage of him on that regarding the Central Park jogger who was raped, about bringing in the death penalty and the whole full page ad. So why? He had many outcries. And again, he has the money to put that out there. But I feel that the intent of this movie, yes, it's historical, but but the timing, okay, the timing of it, that they want to remove President Trump and have him impeached, whether you like him or not. Again, but the I feel the intent of the movie is to tarnish his reputation. He's not a perfect man. What you see with him is what you get. And again, the social climate of the day, people wanted the rapists, the rapists of that time out of picture. Things were really, really bad during the 1980s. And you had, like, even with myself, when you go on the train, you were followed by people. The trains are packed, and I was fondled several times. You had a lot of sexual predators back then, and I was a target by them. It was awful. So you wanted them off the street. You wanted them out, and I don't I understand the sentiment. No one, regardless of race, no one wants any perverts attacking them. Okay, so I feel that the movie has a motive behind it. Yes, it's showing about history, what happened in the 1980s, and it shares the racial climate, how blacks and a Hispanic were falsely accused. And again, the jury was had a lot of blacks on it. So you cannot say that it was an all-white jury. These were juries of the peers of these five teenage boys. So why weren't this jury able to see through the shenanigans of the police and the evidence, you know? So that's my concern about the movie. So you have Oprah that was a big part of this movie in the making of this movie, and then they showed Trump. They had a video of Trump saying that the death penalty should be implemented and that whoever who raped her, he never mentioned by name. He just said whoever who raped her should get the death penalty. And I think a lot of people would feel that way, you know. So that was the other thing about the case that's problematic. What else here? Get my thoughts. Mm, Let me see now. Yeah, the again, overall the movie was the miniseries was good. Um, it at times I thought it might have been a little biased, a little bit too stereotyped. Again, it's trying to pull emotions out of you. Um, at some moments, they did it excellent. You know, capture the essence what they might have felt these five teenage boys. I felt that the Hispanic character in the movie, I think his name is Santana, um, they showed his family life, and I thought that it was stereotyping what Hispanics act like. They showed like in his household that there was a lot of little kids inside. They live in an apartment, and the kids are jumping on the furniture and things like that. And I thought, come on, I don't know woman, any Hispanic woman, or any woman would allow children to jump on furniture and acting wild like that. So I thought it was just to drop, just try to create an image or feel what Hispanics are like. So that I did not like. I didn't like his portrayal at all. And the four remaining people, they were darker skinned black. They had one lighter skinned black non-Hispanic, and the others were darker skinned blacks, non-Hispanic. Very, very compelling, very sad. And um, let's see. Oh, there was something else in the movie. Um, and I thought this was interesting, Wiley. I almost forgot. One of the people in the movie, one of the boys, teenage boys, had a brother, and the brother was a uh, what's the term you use? He dressed as a girl. He wanted to be a girl, and I thought it was a girl actually, but no, it was his brother who dressed as a female and had the uh, female hairdo and makeup and everything. And I thought, look at this. Now, I never heard of the case that, with the five teenage boys, about having a brother who um, likes to dress, who I think we were transgender of its day. Why do they bring that fact in the movie? Well, again, I think that this movie, even though it's an important story about the five teenage boys who were wrongfully um, accused of something they didn't do, but I think, again, it's for. I think that someone wants to uh, get votes, so you're gonna slam Trump, and then you're going to bring in the transgender issue to bring that out. Again, whether someone's a transgender, people's rights should be protected. And in the movie, this transgender is murdered. Okay, so it's very pulling. So I think this movie, again, every life, regardless of your orientation, every life is important. But why are they bringing that information in this movie? Because it wasn't relevant to the movie, to the story. But again, you're Oprah Winfrey. You may be running for presidency in 2020. You want to get votes. So here, this movie, you're going to get the Hispanic vote, you're going to get the Black vote, and now you want to also get the transgender vote. So you got a 3-for-1 in this movie. And again, I'm not trying to minimize the seriousness of what happened to those five teenage boys or the Central Park jogger. No one should have to go through that horror, real horror and drama. But again, Netflix has aired this movie, and it's being put out now. Why is it being put out now? Well, again, it's because it's election year. That's how I'm interpreting it. This is just my opinion and interpretation of it. And so I say, don't let this movie persuade you against Trump because of his stance on the death penalty. Again, to put in perspective, there were a lot of sexual crimes happening at that time, and people were fed up. And also at that time, you had a lot of, in fact, it could have been in 1970, it could have been 1978. And I witnessed what they call wilding. Yep. And the person who got victimized was someone who I knew, was a classmate of mine. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's my little doggy there. Yeah, a classmate of mine. It was a pack of young guys. I knew they were a little younger than me. You okay, baby? You got dry. Yeah. You need some water. I'm sorry. My little doggy is coughing. Yeah. So around 1978, it could have been. The I was waiting at a bus stop on Hillside Avenue in Queens, New York City. You want to get some? Let's get some water. Go get some water. Go get some water. I'm sorry, my doggy is coughing. Yeah, it is a little dry. Let me get some water for myself too. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so yes, in 1970, it could have been in 1978. I was in high school at the time, and I witnessed a beating. It stopped very quickly. First, you heard like I was waiting at the bus stop, and then a young black girl. She would have been around my age. She's walking past me, and there was some young whites behind me, I think. And the girl said, "You better watch out. These guys, they want to beat you up. You better get home before you get beaten up." But she said it in a threatening tone. She didn't say, and I always remembered that the young black girl, teen, was saying that to the young whites, not because she cared about them, but based on the tone of her voice, she sounded angry at them. It was more like a threat that they better leave. They better get out of the here, out of the area, or else. Then she walked past me, and then shortly after that, you saw coming down the hill. This what hill was that? I think it was 168th Street or 168th Place. And you see coming down the hill towards Hillside Avenue a group of young teenage boys. And back then they were wearing, yeah, they wore all black. They wore like warm up suits and sneakers, and they had their hair cut real short, close crop haircut. They were all very dark complexion young teens. And then you saw it could have been maybe a group of 20 boys, teenagers, and you see them running in a pack. And then I'm surprised I still remember this. The teen that what looked like a teen that was up in the front of the crowd. I remember him lifting up his fist up in the air and turning his back to see who was, his boys behind him before he strike, did the first strike on these whites. It was my girlfriend, and it was a female classmate of mine, and this boy. The guy was white. He's the one that got punched. They didn't punch the girl. The girl I know, the friend, she was a mixed. She was a mixed race Korean girl, and they left her alone. But they were all. I remember they were all like, "What? Like, what's going on?" And then it just happened so fast. The guy took his fist and hit him on the face, and then all of a sudden they just split, and that was it. But it never hit the newspaper. It didn't hit the news when I got home from school. Nothing in the news about it. So it's really something about news. When is certain news held? And I think maybe the news was withheld from the public because they didn't want to create a race riot. They were afraid, and so they squashed it. Yeah. See, a lot of things. What I learned about that was, see, a lot of things that happen in real life is withheld from the general population, and they choose and pick what they want the public to know, and that they push certain issues because they want you to react a certain way. They create the social climate, the media. So I just remembered, I remembered about that case. So yeah, this is what life was like in those days. And I don't want anybody to get fooled or manipulated about certain events that happen. They want the system at large today, in my opinion, is working on, it's relying on your sensitivity towards certain things. And they want to create a race war. They want people to mistrust one another. And so I'm saying, don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. But you have a right to vote for who you want to vote for. But just know, if they really thought this event that happened 30 years ago was important, why are they showing it now after 30 years? Well, because who they have in office right now, the president that you have now is President Trump. And they're going to use this movie to sensitize the Black community, the Hispanic community, and the transgender community. And Oprah Winfrey, according to the credits, she was a part of making this movie come on screen. Okay, Netflix. A lot of people have access to Netflix, and so people are going to watch it. So I'm just saying, look, don't let news like this manipulate you to hate somebody. And again, the social climate of the day. People wanted those, whoever who raped that lady. That's what Trump was saying. We didn't know who the rapists were. We assumed before they were accosted, taken by the police. I think that's when he put the ad out there, and they wanted to find someone to blame it on. But again, they didn't blame it on the serial rapists. They knew they had a rapist out there, and I'm sure the DNA was left behind with the other four rapes that Matthias Reyes had done. So it's really something how it could have gotten lost in the translation, so to speak. No DNA. Why wasn't his DNA mentioned? You know. So yeah. So I'm finished with regard to the Central Park Five, but now I want to talk about another serious matter. I know this is a heavy video, but I felt it important, and I thought about it for 2 days in doing this movie. I mean, doing this live stream, but a little nervous about it. Yeah, two days ago, when I saw the TV miniseries on Netflix, I was very emotional, and I did cry with the third part, the third and final uh, episode, and it triggered my emotions about molestation. I did mention in past videos of things that happened to me growing up, and I I was violated as a child, and when I learned about one of my nieces being violated by the same person, this was really problematic for me. It put a lot of stress on me. And so what this portion of this live stream is going to be about is about the how a molestation or incest, how does it affect people, the victims? How does it affect the individual who bring this to the attention to the authorities? That's what I want to talk about. And so for me, it was very stressful. I had a lot of fear. And the fear was, what was the fear? Well, it's hard to really say. The fear of just being afraid. Because as a family member, how are you going to be treated? And that's what I learned about this experience, that people take sides. Just like with the Central Park 5, you're going to have people take sides, whether it be a family member, whether it's a politician, whether, a stranger. People are going to take sides in any manner. And I felt badly that my side wasn't taken. I felt betrayed. And I also had a lot of guilt about when I notified the authorities. I feel, even to this day, I feel badly of the relative of mine who I was trying to protect, trying to get the authorities to stop her abuser, and how things could backfire, and how the person who the family member, the molester, had hurt me and other people. I still feel that, it's, I'm wondering whether, are there any more victims out there. The person was not arrested for the molestation because the statute of limitations ran out, but they were only arrested for kitty porn. I don't know. And then even after him coming out of jail, he only did 4 months of jail time for possessing child pornography. But um, I felt afraid that the person was going to hurt other people. It was really a bad scene. So also start to ask myself, like, oh, it's hard to think right now. Um, how did it affect other people? Well, one of the victim, fell in a relationship with a guy, and horrible things happened to her. She's still being abused. She was being abused by her so-called significant other. So I think, like, with victims of rape or incest, molestations, that we often make poor choices because we can't think clearly sometimes, out of fear of being alone, or you have low self-esteem, and so you stay in this relationship, bad relationship, because that's all you know. So what could be done to help people who are victims of rape or molestation or incest? What do you do? How how do you, let's say, if you witness or told about someone who is being uh, molested, and you go to the authorities, what should you be careful of? Are they going to like, let's say you witness something and you bring it to authorities. Not everybody is going to like you, even though you're reporting a crime. If you didn't hear me, I'm going to repeat it again. Not everybody who reports a crime, even to protect a minor, a young child, or even an infant, not everybody's going to love you. That's right. Not everybody's going to love you. You're going to have male or female hate you because you reported, because it ruffled feathers. It exposed something that they want to conceal. And that's what I learned also about the nature of sexual crimes, that people like to conceal, people like to hush hush, and people may not value truth. That's what I learned. And it still pains me this day about it. I feel like that I wasn't taken seriously, That's how I feel sometimes. I feel that I'm hated, and I feel that more reverence is given to the culprit. And that when I learned that a family member was invited to go on vacation with this molester, I said to myself, isn't that something? And that I feel that that person who's being invited treats that pervert with respect and better than me, and treat me worse. The same person had when they had opportunity to talk to me in semi-privacy, had cursed me out for reporting the molestation. It was an awful, awful, awful experience. Again, it shamed me. It was to the person who was trying to shame me. But I never heard them curse out the culprit. And again, just less than a week ago, this person is going to go on vacation with them. It angers me. It really, really angers me. And it's a female that's going to go on vacation with this individual and their family. And so I'm dealing with this, and it's really it's really problematic for me. I don't understand it. I don't know. I don't understand why when you try to do something logical, when you try to do something and you try to think and do the right steps, that somehow it 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 doesn't come out right sometimes in all your best efforts. And so it's like it is what it is. So people really have to be careful. Adults, teens, children, that to come forward, whether it's you as an individual who was violated or someone who witnessed someone being violated, you have to really be careful because it could backfire against you and everyone come against you, men and women. Yep, if you didn't hear me right, men and women. Women don't, some women and many women do not want to rally behind women who are sexually violated. And I start to ask myself, why is this? Why would not a woman rally behind another woman? Well, sometimes what could happen, again, this is my understanding or belief, and maybe you might have a different understanding, but I think sometimes with women or people who are victims, that they don't want to be reminded that they were victim. And so they take out their pain and suffering and blame new victims and blame them because they can't deal with their own pain. And I think that's what's going on. Yeah, I think that's what's going on. And so again, people who are watching this video, really think about the consequences of coming forward. People could manipulate evidence, or they could gang up on you and lie on you. And then the authorities think, oh, well, everybody's saying this about so and so. So, we're not going to take them seriously. Oh, let's disqualify them. or sometimes fear. Or maybe they bribed. Hey, say that nothing happened and we'll pay for a vacation trip for you. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that that's what's happening here. Yeah, I'm just saying that anybody could say anything to keep a child from testifying, or even an adult. Hey, if you testify, we're going to hurt your family. We're going to get you fired from your job. We're going to harass you when you go outside. And even women can do that to other women. It's not just men, women. Yeah. So here you have a young child, let's say. They're afraid to come forward. The only people who they know, their family. And to speak out may disrupt the illusion of harmony in that family unit. They want to make people think that everything's perfect, that they're all happy. They may live in a beautiful, plush neighborhood, but crimes are being done. Things are being done. Things are being shown. I don't think people who are child molesters, pedophiles, and the like, I don't think they ever change. They might change certain aspects of what they do, but the essence of what they are does not change. And all the stress that I'm experiencing, yeah, that I almost forgot. Um, I saw this individual when I went over my mom's house. Yeah, his family was there. I didn't know that they were going to be there, but yeah, I saw them. And what was painful for me was that here my actions was to protect. I know what it's like to be victim. I don't want to be a victim anymore. I don't want to act like that, like a victim. But when I went there and I saw some of the children and my concern for them of their safety. And when I said hello, I said, "Hey girl, how you doing?" And the response was very, very rude, very hostile, very contemptuous. And then the other young woman, teen that was there, didn't even respond. So yeah, I'm a woman. And they're relative. I don't know what's being said about me. See, I really don't know these young girls, these relatives of mine. I I only saw them like there was at a funeral, and even at the funeral was like 10 years ago, and the girls are really really small, and how one of the parents pulled one of them away from standing near me. I was uh, putting water in the flowers from the funeral and putting that little powder to keep them preserved. And one of them was just curious what I was doing. And then the parent pulled away from standing near me. And it made me feel like I'm the bad guy. That hurt. See, the funeral itself didn't bother me, but that bothered me. And so fast forward 10 years later, about a week ago, and now these young girls are big girls now. And what was being said? What's being said about me? The girls don't personally know me. And why the intensity of the cold treatment? And the person that violated me as a child didn't say one word to me. And I thought there was something. So something happened because the last time I saw them, I think, was maybe 2 years ago at someone else's home. And they were all pleasant. They were just coming back from vacation. So from 2 years ago to now, what happened? So whatever what it is, I mean, I have my thoughts, but how could, why vilify me? What do you think I should have done? Okay, people, I'm going to pose this question out there. Let's say you're parents, you have parents. Or let's say you are a parent and you have young children. And let's say you discover that they were molested or raped by an adult. And let's say someone told the authorities about the rapist, but let's say it's a family member. What should you do? I'm going to present this question, and I really hope that, I know this is a long video, but it's essential that these type of questions be asked to educate me if it's something that I could have done better. What do you do when you're told that someone is being sexually violated? What do you do? It's an important question. What do you do as a parent? Do you pretend nothing that you didn't hear? Do you call the person a liar? What do you do? How do you protect those who cannot protect themselves? Ask yourself, parent or caretaker, ask yourself, what do you do to protect? And comment below. Let us know what you would do or what you think should be done. And let's say the culprit is someone you're married to. What do you do then? What do you do? This is another important question. See, a lot of women are afraid to leave because of money. Oftentimes, the woman doesn't make near as much money as the male, but that's not always the case. So let's say in those cases where the woman makes more than the guy, some women don't want to leave because they want to have a man. They want people to think that everything's perfect and that part of their identity is to be married and to pretend that everything is perfect. But what happens when things aren't perfect? What do you do then? Do you live a lie and pretend that everything is wonderful? Or you say, hey, things aren't wonderful. I better get out of this relationship. See, when you stay in these type of relationships, it will eventually eat you up. Because in the back of your mind, you know what's true, and that other people get involved. Other people could get hurt. And so for you to stay, it just becomes more paramount. It intensifies the problem. It doesn't go away. It never goes away. It never goes away. The temptation is always there. And you know what some parents do. The victim, let's say it's a female victim, and let's say you have the mom, sometimes the mother gets jealous of the daughter, even if she's raped or molested, because it's her man, and yeah, and he's the father also. So really, really gets ugly. So I ask you, what do you do? What would you do? And comment below and write down what you think should be done. What can be done? What about places where the child, where could the child go? Let's say if it's an older teen, where can the older teen go? Or let's say it's a little child and you're an adult and you know about the situation. And no matter what you do, as an adult who knows about what's going on, it's going to tear families apart. And I think this is part of the anger that is being inflicted on me because the boat is rocking and people take sides. And not always people take side. People don't always take the side of the person who is the who brought the information to the authorities. People don't like the truth. And that's what I also learned about this experience. People don't want to hear the truth and they don't want to see it either. And so we hide things, we cover things up, and we blame the victim. We blame the victim. If there was any way that I could, I feel for those young girls, my young relatives. I feel really bad when the silent treatment and you could feel it in the air. What are they? What are these parents telling them about me? They personally really they don't really know me, but yet all this toxicity that I sense. One thing I hope, like I feel, I don't blame these young ladies. I don't blame them. They only know what their parents tell them. They only know the sentiment that is projected upon me. Again, I live far away from these people, and they were just visiting my mom, and I was just so happened to be there. It's an awkward situation. And so no matter what you do, whether you are a victim or someone who has knowledge about something going on, no matter what, there are no winners in this situation. There's no winners. It's awful. So I feel for these young ladies. And the other sad part that I feel about it is that I have a relative and then I can't really get to know, and that they're not allowed to talk to me. I hope that when time goes on, that they'll see that my intention was not to harm them in any way. I feel for these young ladies, and I just I don't want them to be in any pain, and I'm thinking that when they see me, they're reminded of pain. I don't know whether it's still happening to them. I just pray for their safety and that I hope they know. I hope they could somehow read my heart or reach out to me. And if they find this video, and I know and I know my family, that they know about this channel and that they watch my video. And maybe someone might say, hey, have you seen so and so, so and so's video? Yeah, you better watch it. And then maybe they saw one of my videos on this subject, and maybe that's why. I don't know. I mean, I have my ideas, but either way, that see, I I I, I think when these things started happening to me as a child, and I know what it's like to be lied on as a child. I remember that I had a little doll. I had a Barbie doll once, and I shampooed the doll's hair with soap. And you know, some soaps have perfume in it. And someone squealed on me and my family and accused me of putting perfume on the doll's hair. And then my father got involved. And then that's all I remember, that I think I kind of blacked out about that. My memory blacked out on the matter. But I never forgot how I felt. And I think because of that experience, that the importance that to be believed. And again, I was maybe 7 years old at the time. And I didn't put perfume on the doll's hair. And I don't think that that's even a crime, you know? A little girl may play with mommy's makeup or perfume, whatever, but it wasn't the case. And it's nothing, I think, to beat someone for. See, again, when what 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 happens sometimes with families, when a member of a family had been abused or beaten, whatever, they take it out on other siblings and they lie on them and wanting them to be inflicted pain. Let's stop the cycle of abuse, and you start to stop the abuse by stopping your behavior. Each individual to stop the abuse, stop lying on people, stop abusing your siblings, your relatives, your neighbors, stop the insanity and start coming to be sane and ask for the Creator to protect you, give you wisdom how to get out of certain situations. That's important. Very, very important. Yeah. So each one has that that has that power. You have power on how you respond to situations. You have the power of what to say in a situation. Maximize this so that it elevates you and can potentially protect you. Let's stop protecting one another. I know it's hard. I know it's very hard, and it's in my in many situations there's no winner. There's no real winner. There's always someone that's going to be hit hard. So that's all I can really think of right now. And I know I said a lot, but I just hope for the best in this situation, and that people be saved, that people be respected. Okay? So I thank you all for watching this live stream. I hope the audio is working well, but I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it got you to start thinking for yourself. And I say this to me as well. And if you know of people who will appreciate this video, share it with them. Use it to enlighten, or use it as a discussion piece. You know, each one, teach me what could be done. Teach us about where you can go. Are they safe houses that one could go to? Okay. So again, I thank you. Yes, you could comment below to share this video with friends and family members. You could subscribe to my channel, Spirit Journey. And those of you who like my content, my channel, perhaps you may consider to donate to my channel. You could go PayPal me, and you can find the link for my PayPal me on my channel, Spirit Journey, and on the top right of the banner, you'll see the link to my PayPal me. You just follow the link, and what your heart desires and what you want to bless me with, you know, uh, it's all up to you. And I thank you in advance for blessing me. Okay, so I'm going to end this live stream, and I I'm glad I did this video. I was a little afraid to do it, but sometimes you just gotta do it. And may the right people hear this video, and may someone be saved from harm. Okay, so take care and enjoy the rest of your evening. Okay, take care, guys. This is Spirit Journey signing off. Bye bye.